So hello and welcome. Today's video is all about the new Ezeptocore. Similar to its predecessor, the Ectocore, the Ezeptocore is a wrangling looping slice sequencer. The Ectocore has been out for a while, but I thought with the new release of the Ezeptocore, why not give you a quick rundown now that the module is a bit more available. The Ezeptocore is based on the Ezeptocore software and offers algorithmic sample, mangling and effects in 8HP. Each Ezeptocore has 16 banks for stereo audio samples at 44.1 kHz, 16-bit. They can be rearranged and affected by a combination of its 16 onboard effects in real time. So let's have a look how the Ezeptocore works. The Ezeptocore cannot record new samples, but you have to prepare all your samples beforehand using the associated software, which we will look at in a bit. Once you have your samples divided in different banks on your SD card, you can rotate through the available banks using the bank button. And the sample knob lets you select the different samples within one bank. For both, the LED display shows you which sample or bank is currently selected. The Ezeptocore is clocked internally, but you can also use an external clock or use the tab button. So once we have selected our sample using the bank and tunnel knob, we have two knobs that will control how the sample is being played back. First we have the Amen knob, which determines which slices are being played back. Fully counterclockwise, slices are being played sequentially, but increasing the Amen amount will lead to specific slices being repeated over and over. The smaller the Amen amount, the less slices are being selected to be played over and over. In this case you can see 2 slices. The higher you turn up the Amen knob, the more slices are being incorporated, up to fully random slice selection, fully clockwise. The Amen knob works in conjunction with the jump knob, with the jump knob at 12 o'clock having no jump probability, but moving it either clockwise or anti-clockwise, increasing the probability for random slices to be incorporated into our original predetermined slice pattern. Turning the knob to the left will cause jumps not to return to the base position, whereas turning to the right will preserve the original sequence. This behavior is easiest to see if we just use one slice that is being repeated over and over, and now our jump probability will have an increasing effect of how different slices of the same sample are being selected and played back. Besides the Amen and jump knob, there are 2 more knobs that are integral to how the Ezeptocore works, and these are the break and effects knobs. In my case, the effects knob is still called the Grimoire. The effects knob lets you select one of 7 different effect combinations that you have previously set up in the software, with the break knob controlling the probability of that effect being engaged. And as you can see at the bottom, we also have CV input for the Amen, break, clock and tunnel buttons. So we can control these from elsewhere in the rack as well. There are 2 more modes on the Ezeptocore that further help to shape the sound. And if we hold the tap tempo button, we get into blue mode. And here the break knob will change the volume of the sound up to adding saturation and distortion. The Amen knob becomes a DJ filter that can filter high or low frequencies. The tunnel knob increases the slice gating, so it determines how much of the full slice is being played. And the effects knob will add an increasing chance of beat repetitions, with random pitch and volume decay. The jump knob will lead to pitch shifts. And lastly, we can use the blue mode to reset our BPM, as well as to toggle playback on and off. When holding the mode button, we access red mode, and red mode is all about sample distortion. For example, we can change the digital wave folding. The Amen knob engages a bit crusher. The sample selection knob will turn into a so-called chaos trembler that adds random tremolo to the sound. And we have the chance to add some random phasing between 2 channels, as well as some digital jitter that will replace bits of audio with random sampled audio. And of course all of these settings can be combined to completely decimate the audio. So let's start off with a few quick-fire examples just to get a bit of a feel of the aesthetic that the Ezeptocore is imposing on the samples that we use. And because of the CV inputs, we have more control over which snippets are being triggered and when effects are being used. Here I'm using the trig output that the Ezeptocore is sending whenever a snare is being triggered to send it straight into the break input, which means that whenever a snare is being played, the selected effect is triggered as well. You can also use the CV outputs and inputs to incorporate the Ezeptocore with the rest of your gear. For example, here I'm using the kick drum trigger output to trigger an analog kick drum in line with my Ezeptocore samples. I'm using the DJ filter on the Ezeptocore to filter out the low end, and then have the analog kick drum fill out all of the low frequencies as needed. But the trigger output is not only useful to trigger other percussion modules, you can also trigger your lead synthesizers or other melodic elements. Here I have a 16-step melodic sequence, but the filter and VCA of my melodic line is only triggered through the Ectocore. So let's have a look at the online tool. You can see it here. This is the Ezeptocore tool, and you can access this online and have access to your files everywhere on the go. I am using a local copy that I installed on my computer, run through the local host. You give a name to your workspace, and in your workspace, if you've already worked on your banks, you can see them here. But for now, I just want to add a new bank. You can add audio files directly by dragging them in. I've just imported my New Dawn audio. You can see that my audio file is already pre-sliced. The program tries to do the slicing automatically, but in this case, I've manually added markers in Reaper, so on import, all the markers are just converted into slicing positions. Of course, it's also possible to use the program to add your slices, for example, by spacing them evenly or detecting them from transients. Also here, you can add your drum, snare, and transient trigger outputs and preview your slices as well. Once you added your slices, you can also change your effect selection on each of the 7 effect slots. And once you're happy with all of your settings, you can download the zip file, unzip it, and just add it to your SD card. In terms of preparing your samples, if you just find different breakbeat samples that you like, the easiest is just to render them out. You can mark them if your DAW lets you. What I like to do with my own music is that I render out the different stems for my tracks, so kick, snare, hi-hats, and then I make 16 different versions that I can then import into the audio software. The way I work when I create my music, and the reason why I'm quite excited to use the Ectocore in my workflow, is that I normally jam on my modular rack, and interesting ideas I will further develop in a DAW. Once I hit a limit in my DAW in structuring and arranging my sound, I actually like to bring it back into the Eurorack ecosystem to develop ideas further and jam over it. What I like about the Ezeptocore is that it can, for one, really remix the materials that I have, and it also gives me the opportunity to jam on top. So in this section, I want to show you a couple of music pieces that I have recently released, and then show you what the Ezeptocore can do with it. So let's have a listen to one of the originals. And now let's listen to what the Ezeptocore is doing with that. Note that I've separated the different layers of this music track. The left Ezeptocore is normally doing drums and bass line, whereas the right one has all the different samples for everything else that was going on in the track. And so with all those sound mangling possibilities, it should be reasonable to assume that the Ezeptocore is not only great in the studio, but is also a module that is great for live performances. For this video, this would open up a whole new can of worms to actually move the live aspects into a different video, and I'll release a whole DJ set based on the Ezeptocores in a few weeks' time. So summarizing the thoughts on the Ezeptocore, I would say I really enjoy the intuitiveness and immediateness of the module. I like putting my own samples into the Ezeptocore and then get a variety of different versions that are quite unique and interesting and can help me refine my musical ideas further. As you've seen, the Ezeptocore is not a sampler. It doesn't record audio straight in. You have to use your computer, and this two-step process might not be for everyone. That being said, the software gives you quite a decent control over where to put different markers and how the sample and effects are prepared for the Ezeptocore. I wish the Ezeptocore would have more CV or MIDI control, especially for the functions on the blue and red mode. Also, not all effects are the same loudness, so the Ezeptocore can get quite loud or quite quiet, depending on which effects are engaged. I think if I play live, I definitely have to put a compressor or limiter after the module. Overall, this is definitely not a one-size-fits-all module. I think it definitely rewards experimentation and patience in getting used to the workflow and the inner workings of the Ezeptocore. This module is probably a no-brainer if you like to mess around and rearrange breakbeat patterns. But for everyone else, I think it's still worth considering this as a module for live remixing your own sound material, especially if you have a similar two-step process for composing your tracks that is based on working on your music in Eurorack as well as in a DAW. That being said, other alternatives are as usual the MIDI Assimilator, the Bitbox Micro, or many other samplers, although none of them give you this crazy combination of splicing and live effects. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. As I said, the DJ set will be coming out soon, so see you all then.